Good evening, hello and welcome. You're with the news today. This is your primetime destination news. Newsmakers talking points. Our big talking point. The Narendra Modi government has declared that the Delhi blast was terror. That's right. What does then this mean? Delhi 10-11 for Kashmir and indeed for India's doctrine against terror when it comes to Pakistan. Is there a change in strategy by the terror outfits? All those questions will be raised tonight with special guests. Also, the poll of polls for Bihar. Who is winning the battleground state? We'll have all the details on India Today. But our top breaking story at the moment, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has chaired a cabinet committee on security meeting this evening. The Modi government has called the Delhi blast a terror incident. They were avoiding the T word until now. The government says the terror incident was perpetrated by anti-national forces. The government says India committed to zero tolerance to terror and the probe has begun to identify the perpetrators and sponsors. So that meeting, let's listen in to Ashwini Vaishnav, Cabinet Minister.
The investigation into the incident be pursued with the utmost urgency and professionalism so that the perpetrators, their collaborators and their sponsors are identified and brought to justice without delay. The situation continues to be closely monitored at the highest levels of the government. The Cabinet reaffirms the government's steadfast resolve to safeguard the lives and well-being of all Indians, consistent with its enduring commitment to national security and the safety of every citizen. The Cabinet expressed its profound grief over the loss of lives in the terrorist incident involving a car explosion near the Red Fort in Delhi on the evening of 10th November 2025. The country has witnessed a heinous terror incident perpetrated by anti-national forces through a car explosion near the Red Fort. The explosion resulted in multiple fatalities and caused injuries to several others. The Cabinet pays its solemn respects to the victims of this senseless act of violence and conveys its heartfelt condolences to the bereaved families.
Okay, let's go straight across to Aishwarya Paliwal, who was tracking that Cabinet Committee on Security. Shreya Chatterjee is also joining me. She's tracking the investigation. Remember, there's a eco-stock car which has been nabbed by the police. But first to you, Aishwarya. The government has finally used the T word. Until now, they were careful not to call what had happened at Red Fort 10-11 a terror attack. But clearly now the government is seeing this as a terror attack. Who are they pinning the blame on? Is this being seen like Pahalgam as Pakistan-sponsored, or are they being a little bit more cautious, worried that these could be local Kashmiri modules?
Well, local Kashmiri modules also, Rajdeep, is something that the government at the moment is very keenly looking at. And the reason why they have been avoiding the T words so far was the reason because they were waiting for the final investigation to come out. Now, the past 24 hours, we have seen, from Jammu and Kashmir all the way to Uttar Pradesh. We are also seeing how certain states now are on high alert, and all the investigative agencies, Rajdeep, have been working in tandem. All of them now pointing towards the fact that there was funding which was being given. And it was not just Delhi NCR which was the target. There were other states on target also. The government now, the approach will change, and that's the reason, Rajdeep, let me tell you, the additional half-an-hour meeting that took place between Prime Minister Modi, the Home Minister Amit Shah and NSA Ajit Doval, they have now decided the next course of action that will be taken. In the CCS, a briefing was given and every minister was told what exactly has happened and how far the investigations are going on. The next 24 to 48 hours, extremely crucial.
You know, I want to go now to Shreya Chatterjee. She's been relentlessly tracking the investigation. Shreya Chatterjee, the Delhi police today went to Haryana. They nabbed a car that they believe, again, had been procured by Umar, believed to be the bomber responsible for the Red Fort attack. What has the police picked up in terms of the module? Is this a module which has more people involved who have still not been caught? And therefore, is there a hunt now for other suspects? lots of people have been nabbed in the last 24 hours for questioning. But is this seen to be part of a wider terror module, many of whom are still out there?
Well, absolutely, Rajdeep. That is what we are learning so far about this particular module. It is a white-collar terror module that is being called by all agencies. It was Jammu and Kashmir police which busted it first. But now, officially, in the investigation, the case has been transferred to the National Investigative Agency. Today, for the first time, we saw that the NIA team visit the Al-Falah University. They questioned quite some people involved in the university, including some junior doctors. Is that what we are learning? Simultaneously, the Delhi police and the Farida police is still assisting the NIA in this investigation, because another crucial thing that developed today was that EcoSport car related to that terror accused, which was to be traced. It was found, and right now as I speak, that is being diffused by the police. So clearly, they're working on the entire module, try to understand if there are more people out there. But this is a white-collar terror module that the NIA will now be officially investigating.
That EcoSport car, was it owned by the same, had it been procured by Umar, the same individual? And did it also have explosives?
Well, it was owned by Umar Nabi. It was also a second-hand car that he brought again. It was traced back to one of the farmhouses of his friend. And right now, the CFSL and the bomb defusal squad is at it. They're inspecting it, and once found safe, they will take it into custody.
Okay, Shreya Chatterjee and Aishwarya Paliwal for providing all those details. Appreciate you joining us. Remember, it began all with a few Jaish-e-Mohammed posters in Srinagar. What has followed in the last 48 hours is a stunning chain of arrests, many of them of doctors, that have unraveled a full-fledged terror module operating out of the Kashmir Valley. From a cleric in Shopia to doctors at the Al-Falah University in Faridabad, here is how the Jammu and Kashmir police uncovered an entire terror network. Today's special report from Mir Farid in Srinagar.
The blast that rocked Delhi and a trail that allegedly leads deep into Kashmir. It started with a set of Jaish-e-Mohammed posters that appeared in Naugam near Srinagar in October. The local police launched a hunt, registering an FIR under the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act. CCTV footage and technical surveillance led investigators to this masjid in Nayak Bagh, where they found more posters. The Imam, Maulvi Irfan Ahmad Wagai, who also works as a paramedic at the Government Medical College in Srinagar, investigators claim wasn't just a preacher, he was allegedly a terror recruiter. The Masjid Committee claims they had no inkling what the Imam was up to.
कभी ऐसा कोई व्यवहार, कोई ऐसा शक कि आपको लगे कि ऐसी किसी चीज में इन्वॉल्व?
नहीं, जब तक पोस्टर लगा तब तक भी हमें यकीन नहीं आया ये मौलवी साहब ने काम किया। अच्छा। हमने समझा शायद बच्चों ने फंसाया उसको।
Maulvi Irfan Ahmad Wagai's family in Shopia says he has been in Nayak Bagh for the last 8 years and visited their house only once a week.
इरफान को कब पकड़ा गया?
18 अक्टूबर, हाँ 18 अक्टूबर रात के 10:30 बजे इन्होंने लिया अपने साथ। हफ्ते में एक बार आते हैं।
श्रीनगर के नौगाम में वो नमाज?
नौगाम में नहीं, ये नेटीपुर, फैजाबाद नेटीपुरा में। हाँ,
हाँ। कब से?
तकरीबन हो गए 8 साल। उन्होंने तलाशी की 3 बार, यहाँ पे कुछ नहीं मिला इनको।
From mosque sermons to encrypted chat rooms, Maulvi Irfan Ahmad allegedly played a key role in indoctrinating doctors and medical students into radical ideology. The cleric's interrogation blew the lid off the elaborate terror network and led to the arrest of Dr. Adil Ahmad Rathar and Dr. Muzammil Ahmad Shakil, from whom nearly 2,900 kilos of bomb-making material was allegedly recovered. A third suspect, allegedly influenced by the Imam, Dr. Umar An-Nabi, is suspected to be the bomber who triggered the blast outside the Red Fort on Monday. Dr. Nabi's family also claims ignorance about his links to terror.
मुझे तो यकीन नहीं हो रहा है, हम वो कहते हैं ना आसमान से गिर पड़े। इतनी गरीबी उनकी माँ ने उठाई है, क्या बताएं। आप किसी से भी मालूम कर सकते हो, पूछ सकते हो गांव में कितनी गरीबी उन्होंने उठाई। हमें तो बस उस गरीबी, वो गरीबी हमारे जहन में थी।
तो आपको भी शौक लगा? कोई इंडिकेशन कभी थी कि ऐसा कुछ कर रहे हो?
नहीं।
As the investigation widened, the crackdown intensified. A massive anti-terror operation is underway across Jammu and Kashmir, targeting the banned outfit Jamaat-e-Islami. In Kulgam alone, raids were carried out at over 200 locations. Similar searches were conducted in Sopore, Anantnag and Shopian, focusing on Jamaat-e-Islami members, their associates and overground workers of terror outfits. Nearly 1,000 people are detained.
Sources say that this is just the tip of the iceberg and there could be more people involved in this, from doctors to other people who acted as couriers, logistics, OGWs, and then the foreign the handlers. This could have been handled from multiple locations. So all these revelations, and quite clearly in the coming days, more is expected to come out of this investigation, which is each day touching new angles and new places are being raided.
First, the Pahalgam attack that targeted tourists, and now the Delhi blasts are a grim reminder that the fight against terrorism is not over yet. With Mir Farid, Bureau Report, India Today.
Let's raise some big questions. What does Delhi 1011 mean for Kashmir in particular, given the fact that this is now once again emerging as the locus for the sleeper cells? Is the terror that we are seeing once again homegrown, or is it Pakistan-sponsored? Are we seeing a change in strategy by terror outfits using white-collar terror? Is the bid to target urban centers? And how does one deal with white-collar terror? Joining me now, Professor Siddiq Wahid, distinguished professor at Shiv Nadar University. He spent a number of years in the Kashmir Valley. Lieutenant General Syed Ata Hasnain, former GOC 15 corps, so knows Kashmir also very well. Brahma Chellaney, strategic affairs expert, also joining us. Appreciate all of you joining us. I want to come to you, Syed Ata Hasnain, General, because you wrote a piece today where you clearly pointed out the fact that you're concerned that urban areas could be once again be targeted, this time using white-collar terror. Do you see this as an act of desperation, a regrouping of terror groups, or the fact that with the kind of general in charge in Pakistan, Pakistan is once again activating some of these sleeper modules? Are you seeing a change in strategy, General?
Thank you, Rajdeep, first of all, for inviting me for your program. What I am seeing definitely is a revisit. In the sense, terrorism has a way of always getting recycled in different ways. One has seen this for the last 35 years in Kashmir. A particular strategy used at some time always comes back in a different era gets rejuvenated in many ways. Now, we have seen lots of terror attacks in Mumbai, in Delhi, in the early part of the millennium, late 90s too. All that quietened out after that, and you found the focus primarily inside Jammu and Kashmir. The intelligence agencies had managed to isolate Jammu and Kashmir and busted most of the networks in the rest of urban India. But thereafter, we have seen that once militancy or terrorism as such, the terrorists have been reduced in Kashmir, we have not been able to completely obliterate, take out the various overground worker networks. These get recycled. It is primarily based on financial conduits, a lot of drug conduits which come into it, some ideologues, some issues regarding radicalization. That's how human resources and material resources keep getting recycled. Now, this is what we are exactly seeing happening in Jammu and Kashmir. Again, it cannot happen on its own. There has to be a sponsorship. Whether that sponsorship is internal inside J&K or is coming from outside will be determined, I suppose, from the investigations which are ongoing at the moment. But I suspect that it is not Delhi alone. As I think already brought out in your report earlier, there are a number of urban centers in northern India in particular under focus. And as the investigations keep giving out these revelations, we will find that this could have been a potential attempt to try and take this to different urban centers, considering the fact that there was 3,000 kgs of ammonium nitrate which was recovered. Obviously, it meant that this was meant for multiple targets all over northern India.
That's the worry, of course, that the volume of explosives suggested that this was not just about some limited attack, which was a panic attack, some believe at Red Fort, but was actually planned for a much bigger attack. Some believe on December 6th was the plan, which was, of course, the anniversary of the demolition of the Babri Masjid. But Professor Siddique Waheed, this radicalization that we are seeing, is there a new trend when you hear of a doctor's module, those who are working in universities, in hospitals, being in some way indoctrinated? Is that a new form of radicalization? We've heard about urban youth being radicalized when Simi was operating in the early 2000s. Are we seeing a new kind of radicalization?
Rajdeep, I should begin by saying that I'm not an expert on, terror or terrorism.
But I want you to explore the Kashmir angle with you, because you've understood Kashmir, this radical element that Jamaat-e-Islami, the overground workers are being now picked up. Do you believe that this has existed, or is this something new that you're seeing?
Well, it's, let me say, you used a word earlier in the show where you said that is this an act of desperation, and despair there is a lot in Kashmir, but I certainly didn't sense a despair towards violence. And a despair that would push towards violence. I think the despair is, not knowing exactly what is going on. So if you're asking me, yes, I mean, for me, it is a surprise to see this, being in Kashmir, living in Kashmir, to see that this has been traced to Kashmir. And I say traced in inverted commas because I think we are still waiting to see the evidence. And I think that that's going to be very important to determine then what exactly is going on.
But the reason I ask you this, Professor Waheed, because we saw after Pahalgam and the terrible terror attack, there are lots of Kashmiris come out of the street, take on Pakistan, and in a way, there was a universal condemnation of what happened in Pahalgam. Now, 6 months later, we are seeing this new form of terror being linked to various modules operating out of Kashmir, or certainly having an epicenter in parts of Kashmir. Do you see that there has been a regrouping, a resurfacing of some of the old groups in this new form? Possibly.
Like I said, I mean, my expertise on this is very limited, and there's nothing that I have witnessed in the recent past that would suggest to me that something like this was in the offing.
Okay, Brahma Chellaney, Kashmir has been at the epicenter of terror activity for almost 3 decades. The militancy of the late 80s, 90s metamorphosed into some form of increasing cross-border terror that was used. There was a period when there were foreign militants. Now we are seeing the revival possibly of homegrown groups. Do you see a pattern emerging? Do you believe that this is post-Pahalgam, post-Operation Sindoor, groups like the Jaish in particular now using possibly some of these educated professionals as part of their sleeper cells?
Whatever the links of the suspects to Kashmir or to Pakistan's Jaish-e-Mohammed, the fact is that the terror module and the suspects were based in India's national capital region. That is the most important fact, that they were operating out of NCR, that they were planning something major. Now, another more disturbing thing is that it's well established that poverty or ignorance does not drive terrorism. Many major international terrorist attacks have been carried out by well-to-do individuals or highly trained professionals who were leading comfortable lives. Such attacks include 9/11, the cafe attack on foreigners in Dhaka in 2016, and the jihadist bombings in Sri Lanka on Easter Sunday in 2019. The Delhi car explosion and the uncovering of a terror module with a large stockpile of military-grade explosives, however, represent an even more alarming trend. Medical doctors who are trained to save human lives, turning into agents of death. Doctors, as you know, by training and ethical commitment, are meant to save lives, not to kill the innocent by embracing terrorism. The Delhi case shows how, under the sway of radical Islamist ideology, physicians can turn into bomb makers and destroyers of human lives. And I think that is the most troubling aspect of what we are seeing. These people, these individuals were bound by the Hippocratic Oath. The very first
but we've seen, as I said, in the 2000s, when there were terror attacks in the country, many of them were traced to student groups, some of whom were training to be engineers. So it's not as if white-collar terror groups have not tried to operate in the past. Are you seeing something new and different?
No. Well, white-collar terrorism is well known and well established. I'm talking about medical doctors. Medical doctors, despite the Hippocratic Oath, the very first principle of Hippocratic Oath is do no harm. So when medical doctors embrace terrorism, it exposes a chilling reality that individuals entrusted with preserving human life can, under the sway of ideology, turn into destroyers of life. So this raises a larger question: is there a shift emerging in the nature of terrorism threat in India? Because traditional terror cells often recruited from marginalized, less educated, or economically disadvantaged segments of society. So when there is ideological radicalization of doctors and other highly trained professionals, it increases the threat for the state. It also makes it more difficult to deal with such radicalization, because highly trained professionals like doctors, they can operate under the radar of traditional security surveillance. Their professional status provides a perfect cover for clandestine operations, allowing them to move and operate in high security zones like the NCR without raising immediate suspicion. That's the reason why this terror module was able to operate. And look at the quantity of military-grade explosives that were recovered from this module, 2,900 kilograms. It clearly suggests that this particular group was planning something really big, just the way something happened in Mumbai on 26/11. So, the sophisticated infrastructure, Rajdeep, that this particular episode highlights does require a shift in India's counterterrorism strategy. It requires a multi-pronged approach that goes beyond traditional security measures.
Let me just take what you've said to General Ata Hasnain. If this is a new challenge or new threat being posed by these white-collar terror groups, many of them in this instance seem to have be MBBS students. Obviously, therefore, as Brahma just explained, their clandestine operations that much more difficult to unearth. Do you believe security forces in this country are equipped to tackle this kind of new force that is emerging? And are you convinced that this new force is being backed by across-the-border groups like the Jaish?
Rajdeep, I tend to agree with Brahma Chellaney Saab to a great extent. Let me explain it from a different angle. My experience in Jammu and Kashmir has always showed me that there were a very large number of overground workers there. Networks proliferated all over. All these overground workers were white-collar types. They were all mostly from the white-collar domain. Bureaucrats, even policemen, some professionals, etc. But I did not ever come across a case where a white-collar, overground worker then got converted to become an actual terrorist. That's a rarity. I have not really come across it. So what you're seeing at the moment, what Brahma Chellaney Sahib is saying, is absolutely right. This is something quite new. And we have seen this happening with ISIS. You see, it's not in India we have seen, but in ISIS we definitely saw 40,000 fighters from all over the world, many of them white-collar people who came and joined, who were sort of attracted to the very glitzy propaganda which the ISIS had been able to put together through their famous magazine called The Beak. Now, this is the kind of transformation which has probably taken place as far as terrorism in India is concerned. And yes, it's going to be a challenge for our security forces. I once again say that the Indian intelligence agencies and security forces have kept India by and large safe for the last 15, 17 years. No major problems in urban areas. But this sudden revisit of terrorism in Delhi obviously throws up a completely new challenge. And as very correctly assessed by Brahma Chellaney Sahib, most of the white-collar workers can continue to work under the radar. You don't tend to, when you look at a person, you don't tend to believe that this is the man who can perpetrate an act of violence as heinous as the one which has been done at the Red Fort area. So obviously, but I also have a tremendous amount of confidence in the ability of the Indian intelligence services and security forces. They will convert very quickly and they will re-emerge as winners, and this I'm very certain.
I just want Siddiq Wahid. I forget the terror aspect itself. I remember in the 1990s, words like alienation and misguided youth were used in a way in the Kashmir Valley. I'd keep hearing these words. Do you believe a lot of this is built on those old tropes of alienation, of misguided youth? Or are we seeing a kind of new generation of Kashmiris who have seen nothing else in their lives but the gun around them?
Again, I'll have to plead ignorance on this score, because I think it's a very sort of specialized area where you have to have ground information. As far as alienation goes, that exists. I mean, it's not something that is invented. I think that does exist. As I said earlier, I had not sensed that there was a desperation to go to violence, and certainly violence of this extent and in this manner is something that is quite a surprise to me. I mean, and in the last few weeks, I mean, these many surprises like this have sprung up in what used to be the Jammu and Kashmir state, and one is very perplexed and wonders what it bodes for the future. I think. As far as white-collar terrorism, as has been referred to, frankly, it's the first time I'm hearing it. And I suspect this is what, is defined by people who are educated, and it's not, no longer we are talking about the uneducated, somehow sort of an organized form of violence that people are organized by educated cadres, is taking place. And if that is the case, then I think, yes, we've reached another level.
I just want to play, though, what the Prime Minister said after Operation Sindoor, because one of the questions that has been raised, it's come through sources that acts of terror will be treated as acts of war. At least that's the message that's gone out. Listening to what the Prime Minister had said then, and I'll get then Brahma and Syed Ata Hasnain to respond.
ऑपरेशन सिंदूर ने आतंक के खिलाफ लड़ाई में एक नई लकीर खींच दी है, एक नया पैमाना, न्यू नॉर्मल तय कर दिया है। पहला, भारत पर आतंकी हमला हुआ तो मुंह तोड़ जवाब दिया जाएगा। हम अपने तरीके से अपनी शर्तों पर जवाब देकर रहेंगे।
Brahma Chellaney, given the fact that the government has said we've rewritten the terror doctrine, some suggesting acts of terror will be treated as an act of war, how does one look at what has happened at Red Fort? Can it be squarely distinguished from what happened in Pahalgam, in Baisaran 6 months ago?
If it's true that the suicide bomber behind the deadly car explosion and the arrested suspects are linked to the Pakistan-based Jaish-e-Mohammed, it raises the larger question as to what are the enduring results of Operation Sindoor, if any. Operation Sindoor, as you rightly pointed out, was launched in response to cross-border terrorism with the aim of controlling that scourge by imposing deterrent costs on Pakistan. Today, the infrastructure of cross-border terrorism remains intact for sure. Nobody is disputing that. Whatever terrorist infrastructure India destroyed during Operation Sindoor is being rebuilt by Pakistan.
But these are homegrown terrorists. Just to stop you there, the fact is these are terror modules operating out of Jammu and Kashmir, particularly the Kashmir Valley, unlike Pahalgam, where the terrorists were operating and came in across the border. That's the distinction.
How do you know that, Rajdeep? First, the terror module was operating out of the National Capital Region, not out of J&K.
Right.
The investigators are
they originated. They came from originally from Kashmir.
The individuals may have come from J&K, but they were based in NCR. Why are you not appreciating that main point? Right. They were operating out of NCR. Let's be clear on one thing. They were operating from the heart of the Indian state, and they were operating with impunity because they were able to accumulate 2,900 kilograms of military-grade explosives. The point is this, that Operation Sindoor was launched with a clear purpose. But Pakistan today has become only more emboldened. Look at its provocations and military buildup in the disputed Sir Creek estuary. Not only has the relationship between Trump and Modi soured following Operation Sindoor, Trump now has a new love affair with Pakistan. In fact, we are seeing how US and Chinese interests are increasingly converging on Pakistan. What the US or China does for Pakistan ends up advancing the other side's goal. Both the US and China are working, albeit separately, toward the same end, keeping cash-strapped Pakistan afloat so that it can be used for geopolitical balancing. Saudi Arabia, meanwhile, has concluded a mutual defense treaty with Pakistan, largely because Pakistan's standing went up in the Muslim world as it was seen, rightly or wrongly, as having held its own against a much stronger India during Operation Sindoor. So when history is written, Operation Sindoor will be seen as a political success, but a diplomatic and political disaster. India, an emerging global power, now finds itself equated with Pakistan, a quasi-failed rogue state. Is that what Indian policymakers wanted when they planned Operation Sindoor?
Which brings me back, General Hasnain, to what do we do? How does a government deal with presumably homegrown terror modules that have, as Brahma Chellaney says, operated out of NCR? It could be NCR today, it could be another urban center tomorrow. Do you give the same response? Should you have the knowledge that the Jaish-e-Mohammed are their handlers that we gave during Operation Sindoor, or you have to exercise considerable restraint?
Considerable restraint will be the answer. Primarily, I'll tell you the reason for it. Circumstances have changed, as Brahma Chellaney Saab just said. Circumstances have changed dramatically since May to November in 6 months. Diplomatically, geopolitically, if you look around the world, things are completely different from what they were in May. Partnerships, strategic partnerships, etc., have diluted, reformed, reconfigured in different ways. National interest is the only thing that we have to look at. What is our national interest? Do we just go by the Prime Minister's statement? The Prime Minister made a statement for a contingency which existed in the month of May, April and May. That contingency does not exist today. So why should we insist that the Prime Minister's word is the last word, what he spoke in April and May? As to, no one has claimed, unlike what happened in Pahalgam, where a claim was also made by a terrorist group on the other side of the line of control. This time, no claim has been raised so far. So let the investigations continue. And if this is seen to be only a homegrown group, but receiving sponsorship from across, I think then we will have to reconsider and look at all our options to see what our national interest dictates.
Brahma, you don't seem convinced. A quick final word.
Well, I think, Rajdeep, look at the larger implications of what this deadly car explosion means for India. India is located in a very troubled neighborhood, but India remains a beacon of stability and economic dynamism. It's the only stable, economically booming country in South Asia. So when there's a deadly car explosion in Delhi, it attracts wide international media coverage. This act of terror was on the front pages of international newspapers. Such coverage in turn makes some people wonder whether India is really that stable. That is the reason why the terrorists behind the car explosion sought to target the NCR. That is also why Pakistan's ISI staged the horrific Mumbai attacks of 26/11 by deliberately targeting India's economic capital to undermine India's image as a stable, booming country. And I think the latest terror attack is a sobering reminder that the front lines of national security lie not just along India's borders with Pakistan, but also within India's cities. So the security agencies need to proactively safeguard major cities by tightening urban security protocols.
I must be fair to our agencies, though. This is the first such major incident that's taken place in more than a decade now. Therefore, we often don't give them enough credit for some of the modules that they bust. Obviously, stories like this become national headlines, but they also throw up fresh challenges, particularly when you're dealing, as our guests are pointing out, with white-collar terrorists, some of whom could be doctors, are doctors, in fact, as well. I appreciate my guests joining me here on my big talking point tonight. Thank you all very much. Okay, first, let's give you what the poll of polls have said. Now, all the exit polls are out, and almost all of them, including Axis My India, have given a clear edge to the NDA to win the Bihar elections, where counting will take place on Friday. Some, like today's Chanakya, are going as high as 160. Axis My India, more conservative, giving 121 to 141 to the NDA in the 243-member assembly. But the trend is clear. All the major polls are saying the NDA has the clear edge in the battle for Bihar. I spoke earlier to Pradeep Gupta of Axis My India to try and get him to explain his numbers. Listen into what he said.
Pradeep ji, lot has been made about the Mahila, the women vote. A margin of 5%, how does it really come together for the NDA? And what I'd like to ask you, if it is a close election, if it is the lower limit of the NDA and the higher limit of the MJB, then those 12 seats, which there is a friendly fight on, where the margin of victory last time was, in votes was 12,000. Every seat went down to the wire. How much will that come into play? You must have studied those seats as well, sir.
Definitely, yes, Preeti, and I will reply for seat by seat for those seats as well. Give me some time. But I would always say that these political parties call it friendly fight. I call it suicidal fight.
That could be the game changer.
It suits them to, that discourse among themselves. But when it comes to the voter and the voter sees the symbol of both the party in the machine, they confuse, and in the process, the vote gets split and they get defeated.
So are they losing all those friendly fights? Is the Mahagathbandhan losing all the friendly fights?
I will give you the number, but majority of them they are losing, but I will give you the seat by seat number. Give you some time. But आपने जो सवाल पूछा कि लोअर रेंज एंड हायर रेंज ऑफ गठबंधन एंड लोअर रेंज ऑफ एनडीए, इसकी क्या संभावना है और ये कहाँ से आ रही है, उसका मैं जवाब देने की कोशिश करता हूँ।
अच्छा प्रदीप जी, जो युवा फिनिश
के सारा तीनों डेमोग्राफी का जवाब दे दूंगा मैं, जाति का, महिला का और युवा का। जाति तो यू नो दैट कि सबके सामने MY यानी मुस्लिम यादव ने एक मुश्त वोट बड़ी संख्या में इनको किया। मुझे एक भी व्यक्ति यादव नहीं मिला जो बोले कि उसने जनस्वराज को वोट किया। तो वहां पर पूरा का पूरा मुश्त एक वोट या AIM को सीमांचल में कहीं पर वोट किया।
Okay, so Pradeep Gupta is claiming that caste, Mahila and Yuva are the critical factors. A Yuva vote is the advantage to the Mahagathbandhan. Mahila vote is going to the NDA, and caste identities are more or less holding on. Amitabh Tiwari found a voter vibe who's also given an edge clearly to the NDA in his poll, giving them about 135, joins us. Yashwant Deshmukh found a C voter. He's being more cautious, is only giving percentages. Also joins us. Yashwant Deshmukh, to you first. Turnout is big in this election, and that's what has led to a huge question mark. What, according to you, as you look at these numbers, are you also broadly, in percentage terms in your case, going along with the trend? Pradeep Gupta says 43% to NDA, 41% to the Mahagathbandhan. Do you go along with it?
I won't answer that, Rajdeep, but what I can tell you, what I've been telling you all along.
What is your percentage? What are your percentages?
Which is only concerned, which only confirmed by the higher turnout and record turnout. So basically, I believe that the males have voted more in favor of Mahagathbandhan and females have more voted in favor of NDA. And I also believe that the gap among the female is much bigger than what everybody is expecting or anticipating. Having said that, there is definitively a bigger portion of the younger males in the male universe that has come out to vote, and there are two claimants of that. Bigger claimant obviously is Tejaswi Yadav, and a sizable claimant is also Prashant Kishore of the Badlao and the change mood which has started. Whatever percentage he might be getting in is directly from that change mood of change kind of emotion or kind of voter. So obviously the Yadav and I mean I genuinely believe, Rajdeep, this election of Bihar is going to change the way we look at with the orthodox equation of explaining Bihar. Yes, I understand caste are important equation, not just in Bihar, in every state. But this election is the one which is going to probably prove that there are things which are moving the electoral sceneries beyond the caste and religion arithmetic altogether. The two vote bank that we are all discussing, youth and the female, are caste agnostic, the religion agnostic largely, because we know for sure there is a sizable chunk of even upper caste youth which has on the Rozgar promise kind of gone ahead and voted for Tejaswi. And there is a significant chunk of even Yadav and Muslim females who have gone out and voted for Nitish Kumar, not for BJP, but for Nitish Kumar. So I refuse to believe that everything starts and stops at the caste line. If this election is about anything, it's about the youth voter and about the Mahila voter. And if this election is decisively proving one way or the other, we will know in for 72 hours, 48 hours time frame, then these two vote banks have arrived, and this will force not just the politicians of Bihar, Rajdeep, but politicians across India, the way we are looking and understanding elections in terms of what kind of futuristic policies and the vote catching announcements that are to be done. So this is going to be a watershed election in every more ways than one that we can think of. Mark my words very carefully. I don't use these words very, very often. But I genuinely believe this election of Bihar is going to change the way elections are looked on, not just by me and you and other pollsters or journalists alike, but basically those who are the direct stakeholders, that is the people and the politicians in this country.
You know, what is being suggested there for Amitabh Tiwari, to summarize what I heard from Yashwant Deshmukh, that there are two vote banks emerging, Mahila and Yuva, women and youth. And these are two vote banks that may be perhaps moving out of frozen caste identities. Do you go along with that? Or do you believe that caste is still the template around which politics in a state like Bihar functions? Do you believe that the young are generally anti-incumbency and women tend to be pro-incumbency, particularly if there's a leader like Nitish Kumar at the helm who has consciously cultivated a woman constituency? That Mahila and Yuva, unlike Muslims and Yadavs, are the new MY of politics.
They are the new MY in many senses, and it's also a battle. This election is between a MY versus MY in that sense, because the NDA or the Nitish Kumar-led government tried to create this Mahila Yuva vote bank. The issue is that Yuva is also Mahila and male. So amongst Yuva Purush, because of this high unemployment rates and whatever said and done, the legacy of Nitish Kumar is marred by the fact that there is a lack of industrialization and creation of jobs in Bihar. So this, you can say, half of Yuva is actually veering towards the Mahagathbandhan. So it becomes a 2.5 MY sort of versus a 1.5 MY sort of for the NDA, which is the Mahila and the Mahila Yuva. However, degree of consolidation of the youth in favor of Mahagathbandhan is not that high when you compare it with the Mahila. So there is fragmentation in the youth vote, and whatever Jan Swaraj is getting, 5%, 7%, 10% according to different polls, a large chunk of it is coming from this 18 to 24 age group. And that is what I think in this MY versus MY battle gives that slight edge to that NDA, as Yashwantji mentioned, because we talk about the aspirational class youth. In states like Bihar, MP, UP, etc., or the Hindi heartland, the Mahila is also becoming aspirational, and that also rural Mahila living in rural areas, villages, is becoming aspirational. And this Jivika Didi in some ways has also empowered them and is taking them through this journey of becoming aspirational.
But purely in terms of the exit poll, both of you surprised with Prashant Kishore. Not a single exit poll is putting him in double digits. Maybe there's one in vote share, but none of them certainly in terms of seats. Yashwant, you go first. Are you surprised at all that Prashant Kishore, who's got a lot of TV time and certainly social media time, as per the exit polls, not making an impact? He wanted to be a change agent.
Well, I'm not surprised, because we have seen this replicated earlier in, this trend earlier in Uttar Pradesh when Priyanka Gandhi did a hell of a campaign. But eventually Congress got squeezed out in the assembly election as the process became bipolar between BJP and the Samajwadi Party. Even Mayawati got squeezed out. So I was always maintaining that, if Prashant Kishore is unable, or his candidate is unable, is not seen as the winnable candidate, then the Bihar politics is such a bipolar in nature that in terms of ensuring that the opponent, the main opponent, either of the camps doesn't win, eventually that might fizzle out. That's precisely what is happening. Having said that, Rajdeep, I must say that capturing the vote share or seat share of a new entrant is next to impossible in sampling perspective, So, because there is no electoral history to do a projection on when you are doing applying strings and statistical formula. So his numbers, which are ranging 5% plus, tells me that even in the raw data, that means different people have got captured at least 5% of the vote for Prashant Kishore. And on the higher side, I think some of them probably have touched just 10%, if I'm not wrong. I haven't seen much of the vote share. Everybody is just playing in the seat share ranges. Not many are telling us the vote share. That's the irony of it. But whenever you look at it, that okay, even if the raw data is capturing his vote share, which is probably better than the vote share of Chirag Paswan 5 years back. So if that vote share is ensuring that Chirag Paswan remains an important player in not just in Bihar but at the national level, I believe if Prashant Kishore manages to breach that mark of Chirag Paswan's vote share, he will remain or he will become even bigger significant player in the years to come, provided he doesn't call it a quit. He remains there to play the politics.
Okay, I'm going to, if there is any X factor, all these exit polls going one way, but your exit poll, Amitabh, as well as that of Pradeep Gupta within the margin of error, 2 to 3% difference. Could this election go down to the wire? Or are we clear that the NDA will be well ahead come Friday this time? A quick answer.
It could go down to the wire if the election is very hyper-local. We've seen that there is a high amount of anti-incumbency against local MLAs irrespective of parties, and BJP has denied the least amount of tickets to candidates, whereas in other states we have seen that ratio to be very high. The other X factor is that even though Jan Swaraj is polling, let's say on an average 5 to 6%, whom does it spoil? Because there were 83 close contests in 2020 where the victory margin was less than 5%. So if Jan Swaraj is polling 5%, whom it is damaging, an NDA or a Mahagathbandhan or both, or on a net basis, either of the alliances. The whole game now is largely predicated on the alpha women support, which the NDA is able to get from the non-core vote bank of NDA or largely the Muslim Yadav vote bank of Mahagathbandhan. And these are difficult to catch.
It is difficult to catch. It's also difficult to catch as we've accepted Prashant Kishore. If that 5% goes up to 8%, that could upset a lot of calculations. If the 5% comes down even a little, then it could also change calculations in an entirely different way. Remember, exit polls are also on test. They've gone through a period of ups and downs in the last 18 months. We have been very cautious in suggesting that, remember, these are pollsters who are putting their reputation on the line. We are only trying to understand why they are predicting one side will win and not the other. Thank you to my guests. Just a reminder that in about, 36 hours from now, it will be verdict day. The battle for Bihar, we will have all our reporters fanned out and our reporter anchors who have the ability to assess the results because they've spent a lot of time on the ground in Bihar. And that's the reason that we will be making sure that this is the channel which will give you all that you need to know on verdict, State of War Bihar on the 14th of November. So that's the date to look forward to. To all of you who've been watching the show tonight, thanks for watching. Stay well, stay safe. Good night, Shubh Ratri, Jai Hind, Namaskar.